As I have observed Christians, myself, those I know, and those that I watch from a distance, particularly those of us in the United States, I compare it to Jesus' example as he is in the garden and then everything that followed that. And what I found was a deep disconnect between Western Christianity and what it embodies and lives and what Christ is and embodies. And there's a paradox or a contradiction there that seems like something is off. And not only have I witnessed this dynamic, but I think there's one aspect of it that kind of makes sense. Like, hey, this is something we aspire to, but we understand that we fall short of it. And that's a tension that I get. But there's actually another tension that seems like we're not even trying to aspire. Like, I'd rather not aspire to that. I just want to call myself a Christian, but not aspire to that. And that's the tension that I have more issue with, or have struggled to reconcile more so. And so that lack of interest to really die to ourselves and pick up our cross, as Paul tells us. So it's as if, Americans, or at least Western Christianity, has embraced a form of what many people would call a prosperity Christianity versus perhaps the real thing. Or maybe I'm wrong. I feel like we're a bit lost. Let's go back to the source.
I noticed this back in 2001 when I was traveling around the United States quite a bit, in that the people that I would meet that were Christians had a particular view on it, depending on where you were in the United States. Some would be a little more aligned with your life transforms when you accept Christ. And other people, it's a little bit more about what it has to give to you and how nice that is to have this, gift that's given to you. And the people that were not Christians that I met across the United States had varying degrees of upset about their view of Christianity itself, because they were saying, well, if that's what Christianity is, I'm not interested. It seems like it's just a bunch of people, hypocrites that say that they're one thing, behave another. The Brennan Manning quote that's used, I think, in a Rich Mullins song, I just thought that might be interesting to kind of toss out here too, is the greatest single cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips and walk out the door and deny him by their lifestyle. That is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable.
The challenge that I have is reconciling that with the fact that I am, to a degree, I am no different than those people. But yet there is a difference. And that's the tension that kind of sticks out when I hear that quote. In terms of, I am sinful and in need of Christ more than anyone, but the fact that the transformation that's received is different. The way that I would explain that is simply a degree of embracing or submission to that transformation versus a degree in my own deficiency.
Jason, I think my experience in growing up in the church and being exposed to, as Jim was saying, people who call themselves Christians and are not, which is exactly what I was. Until you have an understanding, I think, of what it is really about, you may not want anything about it, because there are a lot of people that are hypocrites. I include myself in that. I've lived that way. But I think once you yield yourself, I really love that word, because I think Christ gives us the example of that. You yield yourself to the gift that we've been given.
Right.
Then we're empowered. It's not our strength. We're empowered to live a different kind of life and have a completely different perspective. And then we have a heart, I think, for those who don't understand and want them to understand, but it's hard to get that message through because of culture.
Jim, you were saying that when you were traveling, you kind of witnessed this. And why was there that duplicity?
I would come into a town, and usually I would get to experience a church service in whatever town we were in. City, town, really, really small towns in South Dakota, all the way to, San Diego, California, something like that, right? And so when we saw what it was they were preaching, what were the elders doing within the church, and how were they connecting with their community in small towns, especially if they were leading in a way that talked about change, it seemed like it had more to do or people had more of that knowledge of my role in the church is to be changed and to behave like Jesus behaved and to do these things. But I think it has a lot to do with the leadership. And I think that I've seen a lot of evidence of people shifting the message or the word on Sunday, and the elders shifting their guidance more towards what will keep the people coming to church on a Sunday than what it is to need to be there on a Sunday and to empower you throughout the rest of your week to go out and do God's work.